What's up, YouTube? It's another day with the one and only Billy J. And this is my review of episode 9 for 13 Reasons Why, now on Netflix. And tape 9 is all about Justin. Once again, it's Justin 2.0. At the beginning of the episode, it's the end of the school year, and the children are littering the grounds with their papers. Apparently, during the summer recess, Clay went off to visit his grandparents for the summer, and Hannah was left behind with Clay 2.0 at the theater. And to start anew for the next school year, Hannah decided to do something dramatic and cut off her long, luscious locks. And Hannah isn't the first person to do this. No, no, no. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, there's a TV show called Felicity, and Felicity did it back then too. And back then, it was a huge ordeal.
It's one thing to say you're gonna let go. It's another to actually do it. So when I walked into the haircutting place, I was taking a leap. But I wasn't doing it for a guy. I was doing it for me.
Wow.
Wow good or wow bad?
Definitely wow bad.
I don't think it's so bad. I just think it's a different look. Kind of like a new me.
Also to note on Felicity, Felicity would kind of narrate the episode, which would be her telling the story to her friend, and she would record on cassette tapes and mail them to her friend, and then her friend would respond, and we would hear her friend's response at the end of the episode. But that's back when cassette tapes were in and not a hipster thing to do. So you're not being original, Hannah. I'm looking at you. Back at school, Clay sees the Legion of Doom gathered around, and they're talking about cheerleading and having a laugh. And Jessica wants a little pick-me-up, so she pulls out her drink and she's drinking. Bryce is drinking, and he coaxes Justin into taking a sip, and Clay just stares at Jessica like Clay does, and just stares. And of course, Clay staring is very uncomfortable. It makes Jessica uncomfortable, and she darts off. And Clay chases her down to confront her about her party tape. Jessica continues to deny the validity of the tapes and keeps telling him that Hannah's lying about what happened at the party, and for Clay to just move on. Clay tells Jessica that she needs to get help, like through authorities or something, because of the tape, if what Hannah was saying was true. But Jessica denies it and says that she slept with Justin that night, and that's it. Justin's walking by and sees them in the classroom and wants to beat up Clay, but Jessica pulls him out to not have a physical confrontation at school. Clay comes into the class with the Asian teacher, the one where he accused of doing nothing to help Hannah, and he comes in and apologizes to her. He apologizes in front of everybody and then says that he is taking responsibility for his action, as should everybody else. And these words shook the Legion of Doom to their core. On the tapes, Clay is finally back from his summer away at his grandparents', and he sees the debut of Hannah's new do. He's kind of flabbergasted because it's a shocking look, but he doesn't say anything. Come on, Clay. All you had to do was say, "Hey, I like your hair, Hannah." But Clay does invite Hannah to Jessica's party. I guess it's the end of summer, back to school party over at Jessica's house, and Clay was forced to go by Jeff. Jeff seems to force Clay to go to every social event. The prom, or the winter formal, and the parties. But Hannah declines the invitation and says, "This is the new Hannah, and I need to get my grades straight, so no more parties." While in line at lunchtime, Marcus comes to Clay and tries to figure out what Clay's next move is. Clay tells Marcus that maybe they should involve the authorities, or at least the school, to let them know that some kind of crime happened at Jessica's party. You know, other than underage drinking drinking and drug use. But Marcus warns Clay about releasing the tapes to the authorities or the school and says that the worst is yet to come, and Clay hasn't even gotten to his tape yet. Ooh, I wonder what Clay did on his tape if worse is yet to come. Alex and Justin get in a little scuffle, which Zach has to break up before it gets any worse. And while in the locker room, Jessica and Courtney talk about the lies that are on the tapes, but then Jessica kind of questions whether or not they were lies at all, or if what Hannah said was true. Since why would Hannah lie about one thing and not everything else, since everything else seemed to be true? In the men's locker room, Marcus wants to buy some weed from Bryce. Counselor Porter interrogates Ryan about the poem, and Ryan lies and says that the poem was slipped to him in his locker anonymously. Because of the sensitive nature of Hannah and the pending court case, Counselor Porter shuts the newspaper down. On his way out of the office, Ryan runs into Marcus, who's there to see Counselor Porter as well. And Marcus tells Counselor Porter that he is concerned about Clay. Later that day, Counselor Porter, the vice principal, and a security guy come in one of Clay's classes. Sky, the tatted up barista, pulls out her knife from her bag and hides it under her leg because she knows that they're there to do bag checks. Why is Sky bringing knives to school? Is she gonna stab somebody? The vice principal and security guy immediately come to the back of the classroom where Sky is, and they search her bags, and then they grab Clay's bag and searches his bag and find a bag of weed. And of course, Clay claims that it's not his. So Marcus must have slipped it in his bag. At Jessica's party, Hannah does decide to go thanks to Clay. And when she arrives, Bryce starts a Hannah chant, and he actually compliments Hannah on her new haircut and gives her a little wink as well. See, Clay, it wasn't that difficult. Justin finally arrives, and he is such a sweet guy. He brings 2 roses for Jessica because it just so happens to be their 2-month anniversary. Hannah immediately confronts Jessica and warns her about Justin and saying that he's not a good guy. And apparently they started dating when they were both in summer school, and Jessica drops some truth bombs on Hannah and tells her that it wasn't Justin that sent out that picture, it was Bryce. So all in all, Justin wasn't such a bad guy. In the vice principal's office, Clay is sitting there and they're discussing his punishment, and I guess it's a mandatory 5-day suspension for drugs. What kind of school is this? When I was in high school, it was 0 tolerance, and you pretty much got expelled if you brought in drugs. Clay, of course, denies that it's his weed, and we all know that it's not his weed. I don't even think Clay smokes weed, but Counselor Porter tells him that the other students are concerned for Clay's safety because of his recent outbursts and change in behavior. The actual principal calls up the VP and tells her that Clay will receive 3 days suspension instead of 5 because this is his first time or whatever, and pretty much because his mom is the lawyer, and he has to sign up for some anti-drug program at the police station. I think Clay should go on Scared Straight. Can you imagine Clay on that? He'd be crying like the first minute there he's in there. Clay and Hannah are really kind of hitting it off at the party, and they're flirting with each other. But unfortunately, because of his adorableness, Clay couldn't make the next move and let them play suck or blow with the other teens. But eventually in the party, Hannah and Clay make it upstairs to where the bedrooms are. And according to Hannah, this party scene is going to have 3 stories. And the first one up is about Justin and Jessica. So apparently, Hannah, for whatever reason, was alone in the room, and she was about to leave the room when all of a sudden the door started jingling, so she got scared and hid in like a little alcove of the room. And who comes stumbling in? None other than Justin and Jessica. And they were making out hot and heavy and made it to Jessica's bed. And Hannah decided to just stay in there, hidden in her little alcove, and play Peeping Tom. According to Hannah, Jess, and everybody else had too much to drink, and Jessica passes out on the bed, and Justin does the right thing and stops making out and trying to have sex, and he gets up and goes to the door and leaves. Good guy, Justin. After receiving his suspension, Clay's mom escorts Clay out of school and is gonna take him home, but Clay wants to go to the police station immediately. Outside the police station, she is just gonna let Clay go sign up on his own. She's gonna chill outside, and Clay stops and asks his mom some hypothetical questions. And he asks her like a hypothetical question about assault, and what if someone can be prosecuted if someone assaulted somebody else, and there's a witness but they left town, and the person that was assaulted didn't want to press charges or whatever, so if the person that did the assault could be prosecuted. And his mom basically tells him that it'd be tough to prosecute if there's no willing witnesses and no evidence. I wonder what's going through her mind at this point with him asking these hypothetical questions of assault and stuff like that, because she obviously doesn't know the whole story, and all she knows is that like weeks prior, or a few days prior, Clay got in trouble for vandalizing someone's car with "Why me?" and Zach's a big dude, so is she thinking that Clay was like assaulted or raped by Zach? So whatever scenarios is going on in her head, she wants to go into the police station and drag Clay in there so that they can interrogate him so that he fesses up what happened. But Clay stops her and finally confesses that he actually knew Hannah and he was friends with her. He worked at the theater with her. And then she kind of coaxes Clay and tells him that, just because the assault can't be prosecuted doesn't mean it should stay a secret. And this sets something off in Clay's mind, and he runs off. Back at Jessica's house party, Jessica is of course, passed out on the bed, and Hannah's there, and Justin just left, and now's the time for Hannah to leave. So she goes over to the door, but then she hears the jiggling, and then she hears voices on the other side, and the voices are Justin and Bryce. And when the door starts jiggling, Hannah gets scared again and decides this time she's going to hide in the closet. And Hannah sees Bryce hovering over the bed, and then you hear the door open again, and someone is like yelling at Bryce. It's most likely Justin, and Bryce chases him away and tells him to get out, and then closes and locks the door. And Hannah's in the closet, and there's little slits in there so that she could actually see, and she sees poor Jessica being raped by Bryce. And apparently Hannah is stuck in there because she's paralyzed with fear. After Bryce is done raping Jessica, he leaves, and then Hannah bursts out of the closet and throws up and then starts crying. And she obviously feels bad for Jessica, and so she covers her up with a blanket and then apologizes. After running off from the police station, we find out where Clay went, and he went straight to Justin's house. And he tells Justin what he was told by his mom, that Bryce could not be prosecuted if there was no evidence and there's no witnesses coming forward. That's a pretty gutsy move on Clay, considering Justin wants to kill Clay to keep him quiet. So Justin invites him in, and they talk it over, and Justin says that it was him that tried to go in there and stop Bryce, but because Bryce is probably 2 times the size of Justin, and threw him out of the room. And Justin fed the lie to Jessica and told her that they hooked up and not, what happened with Bryce. And he tells these lies to Jessica and says that Hannah was lying about what happened on the tape to protect Jessica, so that she didn't have to know that she was raped, and he wasn't doing this to protect Bryce. As Jessica's alone in her room, she starts having flashbacks, and she realizes that she was actually raped by Bryce. Justin drops by to talk to Jessica and come clean, but Jessica apparently already knew. Like I said, she was getting these flashbacks, and she just cries on Justin's shoulder. Clay is visiting Tony in the workshop, and he wants to know why everybody seems to be protecting Bryce about the rape, and how come no one is coming forward and telling the police about this sexual assault. And Tony tells him to calm down, that he doesn't know the full story. Angry and frustrated, Clay starts pushing Tony and wants him to fight. I wouldn't want any part of Tony there, Clay. We saw earlier he's beating that one guy up. But Clay tries to leave on his bike, but there's something wrong with it, and it frustrates him, and he kicks it and hurts his leg. Tony agrees to help Clay do whatever he wants and expose whatever crimes to whatever authorities, as long as Clay finishes the tapes. What else could be on the tapes? What's worse than rape? Murder? And that scene seems to be very cut and dry. Jessica was passed out, Bryce comes in and rapes her. Pretty cut and dry. I don't know what whole story is left. Unless it's something that Clay did and everyone's trying to protect him. Is the other student that they keep mentioning died? Were they murdered? Is someone on the tapes a murderer? Leave a comment down below. And remember, peace, love, unity, respect. Peace out, guys.